Addition and subtraction with fractions requires that we have common denominators. A common denominator just simply means that all of the denominators that we're using for addition and subtraction have the same number in it, right? So for example, 1/7 plus 2/7, since they both have a 7 in the denominator, that means they have common denominators. When they have common denominators, we do the actual addition in the numerator. So we do 1 plus 2, and we get 3/7. Notice that the denominator is the same as the denominator that we started with. Okay. Another example would be 3/10 plus 2/10. Since they have the same denominator, 10 goes down in the denominator, and we do our addition up in the numerator, and 3 plus 2 is equal to 5. Now, keep in mind that sometimes we are able to reduce fractions. In this case, 5/10 would reduce to 1/2. One final example, if we did 9/7 minus 2/7. So this is a subtraction problem. They have the same denominator, so we'll put 7 down here, but we'll do the actual subtraction up in the numerator. So we get 9 minus 2, which is 7, and 7 over 7 actually is equivalent to 1. Okay? So we need to have common denominators if we're going to be able to add or subtract with fractions. Now sometimes we have a situation where we don't have a common denominator. So we need to think about how can we change a denominator and find equivalent fractions. So for example, here I am with here I have the fraction 2/5. Suppose I want a denominator of 20. So instead of having 5 in the denominator, I want a 20 in the denominator. Well, with fractions, what we would do, right? Well, 5 times 4 gives me 20. But with fractions, if I change one part of the fraction, I have to change the whole fraction. So if I multiply the bottom by 4, I also need to multiply the top by 4. So 2 times 4 is 8. 5 times 4 is 20. So now I have a denominator of 20. So 2/5 and 8/20, though they look completely different, are actually equal to each other. If you plugged this into a calculator, if you did 2 divided by 5 in your calculator, you would get 0.4. If you did 8 divided by 20 in your calculator, you would get 0.4. So those two fractions are actually equal to each other, even though they have different denominators. So when I change a fraction, if I change one part of the fraction using multiplication, I have to change the other part as well. So let's look at another example of a common finding a denominator. So 2/3. So suppose I want a denominator of 21. So in other words, instead of a 3 in the denominator, I want 21. So I'm going to multiply 3 times some number to get me 21, and 3 times 7 does give me 21. What I do to the bottom, or to the denominator, I have to do to the numerator. So I multiply top and bottom by 7, and I get 14 over 21. So 2/3 and 14 over 21 are really the same thing. They really are equivalent to each other. So why does that play a role in addition and subtraction? So suppose we have the fractions 1/3, and I want to subtract 2/5. Notice that they don't have a common denominator. We need to change these fractions so that they do have a common denominator. So we have to ask ourselves, well, what is a number? What is a product that 3 and 5 have in common? And a number that they both have in common, a multiple that they have in common, is 15. So, for example, if I multiply 5 times 3, I get 15. What I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. And then on the other side here, if I multiply 5 times 3, I get 15. What I do to the bottom, I got to do to the top, right? So now, when we do this, we have to do our multiplication here. So we would get 5 over 15 minus, and then we have 2 times 3, so we get 6 over 15. But now they have a common denominator. All right, and that's going to be important here, because now when I do my subtraction, I know what my denominator is supposed to be. Now I just do the subtraction up here in the numerator. 5 minus 6, that's -1. So the answer is -1/15. Let's look at another example. How about 2 1/4 plus 1 5/9? So first thing we want to do is change these into improper fractions. So 4 times 2 is 8, plus 1 is 9, so we have 9/4, plus 9 times 1 is 9, plus 5 is 14, so we have 14/9. But as you can see, they don't have a common denominator, so I can't do the addition. So I need to multiply by some number so that they end up getting a common denominator. So a multiple that 4 and 9 have in common is 36. 9 times 4 is 36. What I do to the denominator, I got to do to the numerator. 4 times 9 is 36. So what I do to the denominator, I have to do to the numerator. So I'm going to multiply top and bottom by 9. Now I do my multiplication. 81 over 36 plus 4 times 14 is 56 over 36. Now they have a common denominator. They have the common denominator of 36. So in the numerator, I'm just going to do 81 plus 56, and we would get 137 over 36. Okay? So you should probably consider changing your mixed numbers into improper fractions. Let's look at one more example. We'll look at another subtraction example here. Suppose we have 8 1/5 minus 4 1/2. We probably want to change these to improper. So 5 times 8 is 40, plus 1 is 41. 4 times 2 is 8, plus 1 is 9, so we have 9/2. So what would we multiply? What would be a common denominator? A multiple they have in common is 10, so 5 times 2, and so I'd have to do the top times 2 as well. 2 times 5, so I have to do the top times 5 as well. So do our multiplication, and we get 82 divided by 10, or 82 tenths minus 45 tenths. Now we have a common denominator. 82 minus 45, that is 37. And there's your answer, 37 tenths, or 3 7/10 if you wanted to change it to a mixed number.